So a few years ago, this funny little British comedian tweeted at me. I don't remember what he said, something offensive, I'm sure. And it turned into, a coffee. And that turned into a beer. And then suddenly, it turned into a friendship. I'll keep telling that story, but Cooper's gonna make a poop, and I need to pick that up before, if I lose it, I'll never find it. Anyway, that one tweet would lead to quite the friendship and a lot of late nights publicly performing while drinking on the internet, and a few embarrassing moments. And tonight, he's playing possibly one of the biggest shows of his life. We're going to the Zenith, which is famous, huge in La Villette. I'm sure it's gonna be a really good time, but I figured before we got to one of the pinnacles of Paul's career and the goodbye to his bilingual career, which you can ask him about that, I might tell you a little story that I've never told here before that involves Cooper, Paul, and me going to Lille. Probably one of the most embarrassing stories of my adult life. This is our time in Lille. Now, as much as this is a story about Paul and I, this is really a story about beer. The overestimation of the self, the capacity to handle one's limitations, and the punishing after effects of having failed, ultimately, at the end of the day. Paul got invited to do this English comedy show with his friend Neil in Lille, which is definitely not confusing in the slightest when you're talking about this story. And so, of course, after getting myself a little to-go coffee, we hopped on a train to Lille.
Hello, Jay's vlog.
And I, of course, was going to explore. Like, I'm not going to a new place just to go straight to the theater and back to the train station.
Having expectations for this trip. I did do some research. I found some good coffee, beer, and food.
You think we're gonna have time to do all that?
I don't know.
And good beer is a good idea.
Absolutely gonna happen. Well, tomorrow coffee for sure.
5. Oh yeah.
What time's the show? 8.
7.
You don't even know.
Which is kind of the way that things often go on tour for comedians, for anybody, I think, on tour.
No trip is too short for a bit.
But I'm not funny. There's a reason I don't go on tour. So for me, I was like, no, I'm gonna try some things.
This is my first time in Lille. I've heard so much about it. I've heard so much about the beer, the people, the fries.
You're not confusing that with Belgium?
Are we basically in Belgium?
Kind of, yeah.
We had to check in, of course. Paul had his hotel right next to the train station, very efficient. I, of course, wanted an Airbnb closer to the center of town, closer to the action. Dropped our stuff off, wandered into the center, got ourselves our first beer.
I see craft beer and waffles. I could go for a beer and waffle, why not?
Now, the thing is that you should probably know about Paul and my relationship and the way that it used to operate. You'll see why it's changed a little bit here, is that Paul would have me on his live streams fairly often. And the way that his live streams would work is you'd have two parts, a public part and a private part for his patrons. And it all involved drinking. Like, we would drink probably between 8 and a dozen cans to pints of beer each over the course of any given evening.
Hi, Ray. Why wouldn't I be here? You're here.
And for the most part, we could handle it. Like, we had a really good time. We would laugh. It was a lot of fun. And while I'm not here to advocate for drinking that much alcohol literally ever, we had a lot of fun. The next mornings, of course, were a different story. For Paul, for me, I always managed to drink a lot of water. I would get just enough sleep, get up, get my day going. I just wouldn't hear from him until like 3 or 4 in the afternoon the next day. It was the hangover country for Paul was always pretty rough. And part of me wondered if he resented me for that to some degree. But this trip to Lille, well, like I said, this is an embarrassing story for me. It gets rough. So we have our first drink in this square with the church overlooking us as, like, I trained Cooper a little bit, which was fun. And Paul worked on his set for the evening. Actually ran a little bit late because of the exploring.
Did I make you late for your show tonight?
Yeah, totally. Figure out what that is.
But made it with, plenty of time to spare.
This is my mate,
Hi,
Jay.
I'm Jay.
Hi, Jay.
Oh.
Got ourselves settled in.
Can I
bother you to take a selfie with you?
Of course.
Cooper fell asleep before the curtain even went up.
Everyone ready for Paul? Yeah! All right, ladies and gentlemen, starts clapping down here with a little gold band.
Here we go. Lille, mate, it's on.
Merde, bro.
And had a grand old show. It was a lot of fun. Good time. Now, the thing about going to shows like this with your friend when he's performing and everybody's got beer flowing, because it is Lille, which is a city that is famous for its delicious and very strong beer, was that they just started handing us pints of beer.
I mean, we might as well if we're going to be here for a bit.
So we had one in the square beforehand, came over, had probably 2
before and during the show, and then another 1 or 2 after the show while Paul talked to friends. You can see where this is going, right? Just a regular old evening. But contextually, it's a little bit different because this is April of 2022, which is why we're still wearing masks on the train. A lot of this is really bizarre to look back on right now. I had just finished losing about 50 pounds, right? I'm down to 175 pounds, the lightest I think I've ever been at the point of making this video. That is a solid fifth, if not a quarter of my body weight that has vanished. And I haven't been drinking 4 months. Just hold that in your brain for a second. So after we wrap up at the theater, I had a place I wanted to go check out.
This looks like a fancy place.
I think it's gonna be delicious. We could go to McDonald's if you really wanted to.
Babe is this restaurant that I found out through Top Jaw, a channel that I really enjoy, and it does an amazing Wagyu steak. And it was probably one of the best steaks of my life. They also do a lot of really good, really strong beer.
It's going to be tasty this week.
That's 8.5% Coco Catano.
Drink, moi je prends une pomme de coco.
So at this point, we're probably 5 or 6 pints deep, trying just about everything. And the night might have ended there. It probably would have gone off the rails no matter what because I was drinking like I always drank with Paul, but a quarter of me had been left behind in Paris. But I had met a lady at the show and we had chatted and decided to grab a drink after dinner. And so to keep with my commitments, I went to that first bar that we couldn't get into earlier in the evening to meet up and have another drink. Still took some video of the nightlife I get. Even when I'm really drunk, I'm still working. Turns out. Anyways, met this girl, had a nice time, and had a couple more drinks. I think I'm at about 11 pints at this point. And she is kind enough to walk me to my Airbnb, even kinder to leave me there, and it all gets pretty hazy from there. And I'm gonna spare you the details of what I found the next morning. However, I'm pretty sure you can get a solid idea just based on how I looked the next day.
Who did his training? I'm not gonna say this is the most hungover I've ever been. But ouch. We had a very, very nice dinner last night. Not much of that has stayed with me this morning.
To my credit, I still managed to train Cooper in the morning, baby Cooper, working on his training literally every day. But it was a struggle.
Aside from the fact that this place smelled like kitty litter, it's a pretty solid Airbnb. We gotta get coffee and catch the train. I think we're running late.
Paul, as you'll recall, had his hotel right next to the train station, but I am in the center of town, a good 20-minute walk away. And it would take me a lot longer than 20 minutes in the state that I was in. But I still had to get some coffee, try a new pastry place, whatever. I don't know. I thought I was making a vlog out of this. I clearly never did.
I'm feeling a little more human with a little coffee in me.
But I reflected on my sins as I went.
Seeing a friend perform a comedy show here definitely is a unique experience that I will cherish as soon as I'm able to feel emotions like cherishing again.
And eventually managed to limp to the train station. Getting on the train, nowhere near my seat, like 5 cars away, as the doors closed for the last time and it was just about to pull out of the station. Paul's reaction will tell you, I think, just about everything you need to know about how I was looking at the time.
He just made it.
Whew. He's fine. I brought you pastries.
Oh mate, you're a legend.
It's crazy to think that was a solid 2 years ago. And despite how painful that was, I'm so grateful for stories like it, for the time that I've gotten to spend with Paul on camera and off, for the friendship that's developed over the last few years, and for whatever fun adventures are yet to come. But tonight we're gonna be celebrating him as he wraps up the end of his final tour. I still don't even know what that means exactly. It's like the final bilingual tour is the way he's been talking about it. So we'll figure that out. But there's some really, really cool and exciting things on the horizon for him. I'm just very grateful for all these experiences, to know him and to be able to consider him one of my friends. And I just wanted to share this story with you because, I mean, touche, Paul. Once in a while, the hangover is going to come my way. And I didn't drink for a while after Lille.
If you learn anything from this story, is to probably never go to one of these shows on an empty stomach. Also, I don't think there's going to be any booze at this. I mean, why would there be beer backstage at the Zenith?
So, Paul, you can play the guitar. Do you want to play this guitar? And then we can. I can do the
To be fair, they are putting on quite the spread for us, at least. It smells good. Taylor's Happy Hour beer.
Happy hour.
With May. Cheers, man.
Here's lekker cheers.
I'll take it. Merde.
Oh, is this a video?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. I thought you said take a selfie.
We could take a selfie too, but I was just going to tell you merde
First of all,
for your
a
show tonight.
First of all, a
Yeah.
selfie is a photo.
Yeah.
Second of all, it's with the front-facing cameras. This is a video and the back camera, so
So
it's
then
not
why
a
are
selfie.
you accusing me of trying to take a selfie with the back camera if you knew better?
Because you said come down and take a selfie with this beer in my hand, and it turns out to be a video.
One of four.
Apparently. Hi Jay's videos.
Menu si un peu. This is all I wanted. Yeah.